Hey, welcome back to the Soul Pod. This is Stacy, a special nighttime version of the Soul Pod. This is the first one of these I've done, so hopefully it turns out okay. I'm playing with this lighting a little bit here. Hopefully I don't look washed out or jaundiced or something. I guess we'll see, right? Either way, you're watching this, so however it turned out, this is the way it is. Today I want to talk about an interesting thing I noticed when I was going through my spiritual emergence and expansion, and it may be something that you're dealing with as well. This video is for you if you're going through a period of spiritual growth and you're finding that you're becoming more introverted. Maybe you were an extrovert before and now you're becoming more introverted, or maybe you were already a bit of an introvert and you're becoming more of an extrovert. Two, I also want to just mention that this is my new microphone I'm trying out for outdoor use. So if it looks like I have some giant fluffy thing on the side of my head, it's just a microphone. So at any rate, with that being said, uh, this thing that happens is it's interesting. It happened to me during my spiritual emergence, and I've always been an extrovert. I'll talk a little bit about that. My whole life, I've been an extrovert, and I think I attribute this to a certain extent to being the youngest in the family, like the youngest child, the youngest grandchild. I mean, the youngest everything. I'm like, and so a bit of a show off as a kid, an attention junkie as a kid. Uh, did stand up in my 20s, so very comfortable in front of people. You know, was involved in drama and competitive speaking in high school. Comfortable with the crowd. In fact, thrive on a crowd. But while I was going through my spiritual awakening, I had a moment, and I've told this story before. So if you've heard it before, excuse me, but it's worth repeating again here. I was I was camping in Hawaii on Kauai on the beaches for 8 or 10 days, and I was going into Honolulu every now and then for a cup of coffee in the morning, take my rental car and go into town. And I had this moment where I was sitting at a cafe journaling, and someone sat down next to me, and I thought, and I was very at this point pretty several years into my spiritual work. I had this thought which came across my mind, which was, "Please don't talk to me." And I've never had that thought in my life. That was such a foreign thought to me in that moment that I'm glad I was journaling because I wrote about it in that moment. I actually wrote about it and said, "Wow, this is so strange. What is this thought? This don't talk to me." And then I realized immediately, like it was immediately, I realized, wow, I'm becoming an introvert. This is what being an introvert feels like. My whole life, I had this story that introverts were people that struggled to connect socially, and it was somehow a damaged thing. It's not. I mean, for some people, maybe it is, but I think for most people, it's having a certain comfort level with yourself. I no longer needed external validation, and that's why it changed for me. And there were other factors involved too, which we will get into. Um, why this happens. So if you're finding that you're becoming more of an introvert, don't panic. It's not necessarily a bad thing. There are reasons it happens. Carl Jung said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." That's all of us when we're going through our spiritual awakening. We become more internally focused. We're doing the work in here. We're not as concerned about what's out there. And when that happens, we do become a bit more introverted. The reasons for it are these. Here's the big ones. Well, first, I want to read a quote from Adyashanti, and I wrote it down because it's kind of lengthy. When I read this, it clicked so well, so I want to share it. Adyashanti is a spiritual teacher. If you haven't heard of Adyashanti, great to read. Definitely do yourself a favor. The quote is, "There's a period of reprogramming that happens during a spiritual awakening where you may find that things you used to enjoy, like socializing, lose their appeal. It's not that you can't engage with others, but that there is a draw to solitude, a desire to be with yourself as you come to understand what has shifted within you." That's what I'm talking about. That moment, it's an evolution, a personal evolution. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And so let's dive into the reasons why. The reasons why, there are a lot of them. I'm going to focus on basically four here. When you have an increase in self-reflection, this happens. So basically your beliefs, your values, your life purpose, all these things. You're evaluating these while you're going through a spiritual journey. You know, when you're going through your awakening, where you're expanding, you are evaluating these things that are now changing. So, like, your values are changing, your beliefs are changing, your meaning and purpose may be shifting. These are really big things. These are not small things. These are massive parts of your core. And so, of course, you're going to change. So there's some shifting that happens, and you may pull inside of yourself more as you're doing that work. So that's one. Uh, when you're going through a spiritual awakening, you also have a heightened level of sensitivity to energy specifically. So oftentimes when we're going through a spiritual awakening, what we find is we go into a social situation and we can't tolerate social situations and the way we used to. And when I say tolerate, I don't mean like I can't tolerate that. I mean emotionally, like vibrationally, sometimes it's just too much because of everything that's happening within us. Our sensitivity to things has changed, and it doesn't have to change that much. I mean, sometimes there's a very very small difference between being outgoing and not being outgoing. Sometimes it's just 2 degrees. You've changed that much, and it's just enough to make you go, nah, I think I'll stay home tonight. Your friends are like, we're going out. You're like, nah, I'm good. And it's not fear or discomfort or something like that so much. It's just you'd rather not. You don't get from it what you used to get from it. It doesn't have the value to you it used to because of that. Another one that I love that's really important to mention is a desire for authenticity. As we go through a spiritual awakening, we're less and less open to inauthentic people, right? We'll be in conversations with someone, and we'll find that our intuition is really clear with us that this person is inauthentic. And we know it. We've known it. We know what that looks like. We've always known what that looks like. It's just that our intuition hasn't woken up enough for it to matter. But now it matters. So, like, we're picking up on things that we didn't pick up on before, or at least we're paying attention to them. And so our need for authentic people, and authentic connection matters so much more. So when we look at a social situation that we don't feel is connecting, we may not be interested in it. Like, as I go on every single year since my spiritual awakening and expansion has happened, I will always weigh. There's only one thing I really want from a social situation, and that is amazing conversation. That's it. That's my primary focus. The one thing that I want to achieve when I leave the house to go to a social situation is authentic conversation. And when I get that, it's fantastic. And you'll usually know if you get an invitation from someone that says, "Hey, we're going to go to so and so's house or so and so's party or so to this thing." You'll weigh it, and you'll know, instinctively, probably just by your past experiences with that group of people, whether you can expect it to be an authentic, connecting experience or not. And we all know our friend groups, right? So that's another reason. Another one is integration of new insights. Basically, we need more time to be alone. Like, when we're going through this, a small portion of it might be that it's not that we're not feeling social. It's that we want the time to ourselves. We value the time to ourselves so much more now because of the work we're doing in here, that we don't want to lose that time doing something that isn't allowing us to do the work or to spend time with ourselves or to be inside ourselves. So these are four of the things that are big. There are other things too, plenty of nuances. But these are the big ones. And so if you find that you're having these things, don't panic. It's not the end of the world. This is your evolution. Your personal evolution is taking you to beautiful places. Rumi said, "The quieter you become, the more you're able to hear. The quieter you become, the more you're able to hear." And this is all of us when we're doing our work. when we're doing our work, we're able to hear our inner voice really speaking its needs. And maybe for some of us, for the first time, we've heard it for the first time, or certainly the first time in a very, very long time, maybe the first time in our adult life. We're starting to recognize and honor our internal wants, needs, and desires. And oftentimes, our wants, needs, and desires are about being quiet with ourselves. So if you're feeling that you're becoming an introvert while you're going through your spiritual awakening, or becoming more of an introvert, it just means that your work is working. This may pass, this may not. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're evolving into a better version of yourself, and wherever you emerge on the other side is going to be this greater, more expanded, more beautiful version of you. So go with it. Don't worry about it. And if this video has helped explain this to you, which I think a lot of people wonder about this, if this has been helpful, please leave me a note in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys. I love to hear your comments on how these things are playing in your life. And if you have additional recommendations, suggestions, advice for people who are watching this, take a look. Sometimes we get some really cool pointers or some really killer perspectives from folks who share their ideas and thoughts. So please do that. Thanks for being here. I can't tell you guys enough how much I appreciate all the viewers. This channel continues to expand every time I post a video. If you haven't checked out the Soul podcast yet, check that out. It's available everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you like this, you'll like that as well. It's expanded versions of these topics and an awful lot of tools to help put in your personal and spiritual growth toolbox. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you on the next video.